click record, and you can start that whenever you want.
Hi, my name is Juan Corona. I am the Director of Bilingual Services for Maywood School District 89 here in Illinois. We're a community just outside of Chicago. I am a bilingual learner myself, and I decided to go into education early on. As a second grade and fifth grade bilingual teacher, I also did some ESL work. But the leadership role and what it takes to support our staff was something that called to me. So here I am in my second year at Maywood as the director of our dual language program, and also supporting our students who are in the Gen Ed classroom who have ESL needs. I'm glad to be part of such a great team here. And looking forward to working with Elevation and sharing our story here.
Perfect. All right, Maribel, the pressure's on. You did a really good job. Let's see if you can do the same. I'm sure you can. Whenever you're ready.
Hi,
oh, actually,
my name
no, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't pin your video. Sorry. I'm learning as we go here. We're building the plane as we fly it. Okay, now we're ready.
Hi, my name is Maribel Taboada. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction in Maywood District 89, just right outside of Chicago. Before that, I was the bilingual director of ELL services in the same district. I started my career as a high school math teacher in the inner city, then moved to teacher leader of ELL assessment and instruction in another district. I was an assistant principal for 3 years, a principal for 4 years, director for 2 years, and now assistant superintendent my second year. So I'm always committed. I'm passionate about working with our minority populations. I was also a bilingual student myself. I'm a product of Chicago Public Schools. And so I understand and value that home language, the culture, our roots basically. And so looking forward to working with Elevation and my team here in Maywood District 89 so that we can continue to best support our English language learners as well as our other students. We are 98% minority, and so about 60% low income, and so many of our students do come with language challenges, whether they're monolingual or bilingual. So we strive to meet the language needs of all our students.
Great job. You both nailed it. Awesome. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll split those up and they'll be like intros. You'll see, I'll send it to you later, but we can get started with the questions. And what I'll do is I'll just let you we can all see each other. So let me actually unpin this video. So if you, if you want to jump in, go ahead. It's okay if there's a little bit of, slight confusion over who's going to do what. It can be organic that way. And that's really it. And like I said, I'm not going to go as a script. I may skip some questions because what's been happening is people have been answering some of the later questions and earlier questions. Some of them are a little redundant, and that's totally fine. I'll find the right questions. That's my job. I'll take care of that. You guys just need to answer the questions. Okay. So I am going to get started in about 5 seconds. I'll start and I'll introduce you both and I'll say welcome, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
So Juan Corona and Maribel Taboada, thank you so much for joining us on our In This Together docuseries, part of the Elevation EL Equity in Action program. Really appreciate you both coming on to this first episode as we get ready for this new school year.
Thank you for inviting us, Steve.
Hi.
You're welcome. How did I do with your name, Maribel, your last name? Was that okay?
Yes.
Good. My Spanish teacher roots coming back, making sure that I still have that. Well, it's great to have you both on, as I mentioned. We're getting lots of school districts represented here from around the country, and yours, I think, given your demographic that you explained in the introduction, is really crucial that we get districts like yours to talk about how we're going to approach equity this coming school year. So my first question is it's a simple one, but it doesn't always have a simple answer, and that is, do you all have a plan yet for back to school as we approach the second week in August here?
I was joking around with Mr. Corona, and I said we have 3 plans for back to school in 2021 because we were being proactive. So knowing that We pretty much had to close our district down from March 16th to the end of the school year. We formed an e-learning planning committee, and we were planning for 3 different instructional designs. So the first one was, all in person with social distancing to keep the health and safety of our students and staff members, at the heart of what we were planning. The second instructional design was that hybrid blended model. And then our third one is full-time e-learning, remote learning. We use that interchangeably. So we do have 3 plans, and obviously we're going to use one of those plans throughout the whole school year. So the work that we did with our e-learning planning committee, it's not going to go to waste. Eventually we will have to go back to a blended model. And of course, the goal is to go back to what we now are calling the traditional school year of all in person.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's happening a lot. I love it what you said about that none of this is going to go to waste, right? Because, the prevailing wisdom, and I'm not sure how wise it is that, well, why are we going to plan for 3 things when we're only going to use 1? But the reality is hopefully all these things will become, used at some point during the school year. As you look at these 3 models, and either one of you can take this on, I'm sure, but as you look at these 3 models, how do you anticipate those particular plans affecting your ability to provide equitable instruction to English learners? Like, I'm sure there are lots of challenges and lots of things that you're thinking about. Obviously, most of us have in mind that would love to go back face to face, but what are the challenges that lie ahead for those different models, for English learners in particular?
I think because we were proactive and had an opportunity to plan, we took into consideration how to best support our English learners and our SPED students, and all students at that. But we followed Illinois guidelines to see specifically how to support all of our students. So we plan on having our ESL resource teachers still connect with our students. We do have a dual language program. So those teachers are well versed on how to support the students in both English and Spanish. I think one of the biggest things that I'm excited about is now having elevation in our district so that our gen ed teachers have access to our student data. And it's no longer a guessing game. Everyone will know who their ELs are. I've been talking about the WIDA can-do descriptors and how the classroom teacher can use that to kind of guide her instruction. And then overall, our curriculum team has been, we were still able to do a little bit of PD for our dual language teachers with Dr. Medina, who was amazing. And I think just planning ahead, it was never left to the side. It's how can we get what we have now to plan for the school year?
I think what really helps, Steve, is that our superintendent's also bilingual himself. And so I was the former director here in this district. So instead of planning for gen ed or monolingual in mind, we started with how would this look for our English language learners and our second language learners at one of our schools, because we have 50% of the students at one of our schools are African American learning Spanish. So we need to make sure that we meet the language needs of both language groups.
Right.
I think that's one of the advantages that we do have, that because we have, Dr. Shiraki Holly calls it senior leadership, but the senior leadership, many of us are bilingual ourselves and were ELL at one point in time, or we continue to be ELL, but you know what I mean. And so, like Juan just said, we always plan ahead. Now there's some things that, when it comes to assessment, that's where, I love having Juan in the district. I met Juan when he was still in his former district. And he always talked about, having that assessment piece, having elevation to monitor the exited students, because our process was kind of outdated. And if you miss that one email, you're missing a lot of information, where with, elevation and the system, it's at people's fingertips. Like, they can log in, they can get it, and they can plan for instructions. I think because of just the makeup of cabinet, Juan, myself, our superintendent, Dr. Negron, our ELs are in the forefront, as well as our special education students. They're not thought of it second, they're in the forefront of the planning.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that. I mean, I think it's just so great to see you both as bilingual people and former English learners, or always English learners, however you want to put it. That's crucial to have that empathy, and they're top of mind for you, and the fact that your superintendent is as well. Not all districts have, I would say, the luxury of having that asset of multilingual people in those kinds of positions. The other thing that you mentioned is, you talked about elevation, but elevation aside, identifying students, knowing who these students are, it is a challenge, and this might be surprising to people. But I mean, in some districts, it's just the first difficult thing to do is to know who these students are, right? And at the beginning of the school year, this year, it's going to be even more challenging if you're in a remote environment in particular. So I imagine having the tools to be able to know immediately who those students are and where they are, even though some of that data may be a little bit old, is got to be crucially important for you and part of your plan moving forward.
Right.
So, I mean, as you think about these three plans, I think all of the other districts that I've spoken to on this series they have made a plan to go fully remote, at least temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
You all are different. You have three plans. You're not exactly sure, if I'm not mistaken, you're exactly sure how it's going to look yet, but you're planning for three different things. What is top of mind for you all right now? And I know, like, I hate using the expression, what are you losing sleep over? Because I hope nobody is losing any sleep. I feel like we need it now, like, more than ever. But if there is one thing that's kind of keeping you up at night about what this next school year looks like, what is it? And Juan, why don't we have you start with that, and then we'll go to Maribel.
Sure, and coming to Maywood and this being my second year, what I noticed was there's a strong connection with the community. There's ties that I've been in other districts and I haven't seen it so strong how it is here. So my biggest concern is meeting the needs of our families, whether it be with meals or technology or social emotional needs. That's what keeps me up at night. I think we have a strong plan for instruction to support our students and our staff, but it's the home, what's going on at home, and we're only limited, to we'll have a snapshot into their home, but what happens when we're not working with them is again, and being a father of a student who's going into kindergarten, I want to make sure that that they're taken well care of, both academically and at home.
Yeah, the family engagement piece and the community piece has come up in, I think, every conversation I've had. Maribel, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as of July 31st, we did decide that we would start full-time remote learning. And so at least we were able to move forward, these last week and a half, knowing that it will be full-time remote learning. We made our schedules really tight so that students are receiving 2.5 to 3.5 hours of live virtual lessons in addition to links. Juan mentioned technology. So now what is concerning to me now is that we're handing out the devices. We are providing hotspots for parents and families that request it. Some can, get the hotspot from their cell phone for just an added cost to their cellular phone bill. But anyhow, my concern is that we are putting a lot on our parents. We are assuming that they're going to be home so that, Juan can log into his Zoom lesson from 10 to 10:30, and then that Juan's going to be working independently, and he's going to log in again for his math lesson at 11:15 to 12, because we have a combination of whole group and small group instruction, because we're still differentiating even the virtual lessons. And so that's my concern. As Juan mentioned, we're real big on, that family commitment. As a district, we have family district events on a monthly basis, and we've done that for 5 years, and they're very successful. And we have them across the different schools so that we are connecting with our 3 different communities, Broadview, Maywood, and Melrose Park. We're not able to do that this year. And so that has been, I wouldn't say that it keeps me up at night, but that is a concern, because we would use those family events to, give them like little skills on, this is an activity that you can work with your student at home, because we have different themes. So like our math night, parents were walking out with one idea or strategy on how to support their children. Well, we're losing that. So we're hoping that we're going to be able to get creative and have some type of virtual family nights But right now the priority is that instructional day so that we can, address some of those learning gaps that we already know the students are going to have from not having school from March 16th, although we were proactive and we started e-learning the first day they were out. It was more of, a review of what they had learned, and we didn't follow our curriculum maps. Now, starting this school year in fall of 2020, we are using our curriculum maps. They were revised to take those learning gaps into consideration, and we're providing one-to-one devices to all our students. And we're also distributing consumables so that students have a combination of technology and that traditional paper and pencil. So I think we're ready for that, but it's that parent component. Like, how do we support them through a screen?
Yeah, I mean, I say all the time that I'm a parent. I have flexible out. My schedule is pretty flexible of what I can do, which makes it easier. But I was a teacher for 17 years. I have 4 kids at home, and I'm not the best at homeschooling. It turns out. It turns out it's very different. So I can't even imagine, being a parent who's a frontline worker, a parent who maybe doesn't speak the language. And is trying to navigate all of this. So that is a concern among everybody I've spoken with. And just a point of clarification here, I think I said that you weren't sure what you're going to do yet, but it sounds like as of July 31st, you have decided to start remotely. Is that right, or am I still?
Yes,
Okay,
that
great.
is correct.
Sorry for the confusion. I think at the beginning I had said that you were planning. I know you're planning for 3 different scenarios to make sure that you have them all, but you are at this point starting remotely.
Right.
So that makes everybody that I've chatted with of the 5 all starting remotely at this point. And I think interestingly, looking back a month ago, it looked like everybody was going to go into this hybrid model. That just seemed to be what everybody was looking at. And for a wide variety of reasons, I feel like most districts are now going to start remote and then see where it goes from there. So that being said, it sounds like given the planning that you've done, you're ready to sort of be flexible, be nimble, and pivot if you need to. I guess I just ask you to provide a little bit more information about that question. Given the unpredictable nature of the virus, the unpredictable nature of what's happening, how important is it for you to know that your staff, your families, your students are prepared to make quick changes if necessary?
You want to go, Maribel?
Go ahead, Juan.
No, go ahead.
Can you repeat the question one more time? How?
Yeah, so it's about like pivoting. So I'm curious, like if as things change, right? You go back to school remotely. Maybe I don't want to put out scenarios out there because I don't know what's going to happen. But something changes. How ready do you think you are to pivot if you need to better support students?
Oh, okay, because we do have, those 3 instructional designs. So I think the remote learning plan that we have, we're probably going to reevaluate it in the first 6 weeks, depending on feedback from teachers, from parents, from students in the older grades. If we get to phase 5 in the state of Illinois, where they have the vaccine they call it phase 5, reopening Illinois, then we already have our blended model plan. So then we would execute our blended model plan where it was created so specific that we even measured every single instructional space at every building so that we know that this room has a capacity of X number of people with 6 feet social distancing. We bought masks. I mean, we're ready to transition to to the blended model, phase 5, to the blended model in all our schools. As far as preparing the parents, I think we are in the process. We have a technology coordinator. We are in the process of creating how-to videos, and we're going to send them through just regular YouTube links because we know that our parents that are not as proficient with technology, everybody knows how to click on a YouTube link. And so we're doing that. So we're building our library. I met with the union board this morning, and basically they also wanted how-to videos, because we're not saying you need to use this platform because they have the option of Teams, they have the option of Zoom, they have the option of Google Meets. Not a lot of them are using Google Meets, but that was also thrown out there. So we are constantly thinking of how to support our staff and our parents so that regardless of what instructional design we chose one now, but that could change depending on how things change in the state, that nobody's like shocked or not prepared, because we already know what that feels like from March experience. We don't want to be in the same predicament.
Right. And having all those plans in place is going to allow you to make changes quickly if you need to. And I mean, I think what you just brought up in terms of like measuring all the rooms illustrates like the crazy amount of planning that's going on behind the scenes that people maybe just don't know about, which is one of the things we're trying to do here, is just humanize this and bring you up to talk about what is going on to make these things happen. I mean, you're talking about a lot of work behind the scenes.
And I
A
think
lot of work.
I think a lot of that is due to how proactive our superintendent, Dr. Negron, is in working closely with the state and preparing us to and giving us the guidance on creating those committees to work through all of these designs. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come to the district, because of the leadership. And being very proactive. There's a lot of that are waiting to see what other districts are doing. We're pretty much on the front lines leading the way. So it feels great to be a part of a team that does that and is thinking ahead, not just at the moment, not just 1 month ahead, is let's plan for this scenario, let's plan for that scenario, and we'll have time to adjust and pivot, like you were saying, as needed. So it's been very flexible, and those committees, we had our teachers part of that, those committees, which we got to see their perspective and took their insight into account as we developed those plans.
Their voice is definitely on every single instructional design plan. Just to give you a quick example of what Juan was referring to. So we have a district strategic plan. If we created in 2018 and it expires, what we call expires in 2023, which means we're going to update it. So our goal was to be a one-to-one district in school year 21-22. When this pandemic hit, we surveyed the parents, we surveyed the teachers, and the number one barrier to reach all our students, ELs, special education, gen ed students, was that technology device. And so we bumped all our plans from 21-22, because we had a plan for technology, to this school year. So come end of April, beginning of May, meeting with our technology team, we got the CARES Act money, so we had the funds. So we invested over $2 million just so that we could become that one-to-one district. We had over 150 teachers attend technology training throughout the summer, not getting paid, just getting CPDUs, because we said, you know, this is domain 4, professional responsibility. We can give you the tools and we can teach you how to use them, but you need to put in the time. It's your own professional growth, not just mine. And the people that are going to benefit are our students. And I know that we go into education because we want to benefit students. And so, you know, when we presented it that way, we were just so, I don't want to say shocked, but we were impressed with the number of teachers that gave up a lot of their summertime to learn the tools that we're providing them.
Right.
To go through the training for better meet our dual language learners. Because again, we have our ELs, but we also have our second language learners learning Spanish. So we have to think of all groups of students.
Yeah, and I love that you're bringing those two groups together, which is something I don't hear a whole lot about. And as a former like foreign language teacher, Spanish teacher, I think that's really important. And also like just the collaboration between those two groups of educators that can really spark innovation. And you're talking a lot about innovation now, and just this kind of forced innovation that you guys were able to get this technology plan into place early. I'm assuming that probably wouldn't have happened if it weren't for this huge disruption. So there are some silver linings here. I want to zoom out a little bit, and I'm not sure who wants to take this question, but my question is, you know, what are the current conditions on the ground there in your area in terms of the virus, and how is it affecting your ability, you know, to kind of close the equity gap for more vulnerable student groups as you think about the new school year?
Well, you know, as we know, our Latino families and our African-American families have been hit the hardest. And so our percentage of cases in the Maywood Township area is higher than it is across the state. So that's a big concern. And that's the other reason why we went with the full-time remote learning, because we knew that we are at a higher risk. We need to protect our students, our families, and our staff. We can't have schools open without teachers. So that decision, I want to say, was relatively simple to make because you're putting truly, it could be life or death situation.
Right.
Never thought I've been in education for 21 years, never thought that I would be having a conversation that truly could be life or death, right? There's no life or death with curriculum, but there is in this case.
It seemed
right now,
like it
with the
2 years
pandemic.
ago, though, didn't it?
Right. And so anyway, to that equity piece again, like Juan just said, we move forward with our technology plan. We're providing internet. We're providing the consumables. We're making like goodie bags with supplies, basic supplies, so that they can still do their arts and music at home. So we're trying to think of everything that we can possibly do to support them. But at the end of the day, nothing can compare to that in-person instruction. Even building relationships, now, trying to build a relationship through Zoom and you're looking at, 20 different little faces on your screen. So it's different, it's different times, challenging times, but I think it's also going to make us stronger. And I said, it's bringing us together, because I don't think I've had more productive conversations with our union than I have in the last 4 months, just because we have to be united. But it's really not, this situation is bringing us more like closer. It's no longer them and us. It's really us. Like, what are we going to do?
Right. Yeah, well said. One of the things that I think is interesting, and again, like I'm really trying to kind of sort of humanize this this whole experience and put some faces to the work that's being done, in this case, yours. And I'm interested if you have an anecdote or a story maybe that you've sort of witnessed over the last month or so that kind of tells a story of what's going on there, whether it's a win or a challenge, about what's going to happen with this new school year, where people are, what they're thinking. Is there an example that you can think of in your experience over the last month or so working with teachers or families or students?
I think for me, it's our superintendent. When we first announced that we were closing our schools, the cabinet had a meeting, and we set some dates in place, and then we met with all of our building administrators to kind of tell them what we were doing and what the next steps were. There was no hesitation. It was right at the moment, and I think it made everybody feel safe that even though we were closing our schools, we still had expectations, and that we were working on a plan that would include all of them. And it wasn't just coming from district office. It was we're going to work together as a team. And it's been exactly that. It's been a partnership within our district. So that's something that I would say true leadership just kind of came out, and we all had our own assignments, but it all is fitting together as we're coming to the our start of the school year. Things are just starting to fall into place because of that planning and that leadership.
And something that I'm always keeping in mind. So last school year, again, always saying we were prepared, but not really. Like, we were prepared to be closed for 2 or 3 weeks, and we were good about our plan. And then when, the governor announced that we were going to stay closed till April 30th, we're like, oh, wait, so we have to tweak our plan. I mean, we did. And then when we learned that we weren't going to be able to open our schools, for the remaining of the school year, it was like back to reality. So in the meantime, I received this email from a parent in Maywood. And so she sent it to the general line, and it was forwarded to me. And I'm reading the email, and I could feel this mom's just anxiety and pain. She had been impacted by COVID. She's a primary caregiver. She had been concerned because her children had not been able to pick up the grab and go packets to stay engaged, at the school, because she had COVID. And so it was a long email in, some all capital letters, other, improper grammar use of the English language. And I'm just trying to read through this. And, I search up who she was. I emailed the principal and I said, connect with this family. I said, she is screaming out for help. I said, and I don't know her. I said, but I'm hope to meet her one day. I said, so, the principal at that school, basically put a grab-and-go meal basket for the family, all the grab-and-go packets to keep her students engaged, you know, a little supply bag for the students, and dropped it off. And she sent me a thank you email like I had given her $1 million. And so that's something that I need to keep reminding myself that for us, perhaps we didn't have to buy the food. It's the food that we were distributing anyway. I didn't have to make the packets. It's the packets that we were distributing anyway. I didn't have to go out and buy supplies. It's the supplies that we already had at the school. It was just a matter of someone reading her email, and that someone, you know, taking the initiative to go to a person that could help, in this case, the principal, because he knows her, and just giving them 10 minutes of our time. That's it. So that's something that I'm always going to keep, you know, reminding myself. For us, it may be like, oh, they're just having a bad day, but we don't know if it's one day or if it's weeks of bad days. I think that's the reality that many of our families are facing.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say, you know, there's definitely a connection between your both your stories. I mean, Juan was talking about leadership and how leadership has to make a decision and people have to believe in them. You're talking about a specific family in need, but it takes leadership, in this case, your leadership, to say, hey, we need to reach out to this family and do something about it in order to make what is so crucially important right now, and that is human connection, at a time when it's really, really difficult to make these human connections. And you all mentioned, I think, Juan, you're mentioning, or I don't know who's mentioning, relationship building. How do you do it on Zoom? Well, you know, perhaps it starts with those kinds of actions. And I think that's just like, it's really a dilemma, because it's hard to establish these relationships and certainly hard to nurture them over time. Keep students engaged, keep families engaged. But little things like that, knowing that you're there and that you're listening and that you're helping with something as simple but also as crucial as food, you know, and activity packs for students is key. So I'm really glad that you brought both of those things up, because there's a connection there. If the leadership is there to supply that and prioritize it, it's going to make a big difference right now. I have to think that. So speaking about, you know, leadership and like, you know, best practices. I mean, if you hear this a lot, I've asked a lot of people about this, and I think that a lot of people think right now, sort of throw your best practices out the window because it's a brand new situation that we're in educationally, and you know, we have to think of new things. And I'm curious what you think about that when it comes to English learners. I mean, we rely a lot on these best practices. Has all that changed now? Are those still in place, or do we need to invent new ones? What are your thoughts on that, Juan? Why don't you start with that?
With best practices in general, or to ELs?
Yeah, would you both, like best practices for supporting English learners in instruction? I'm curious if you think that there's sort of prevailing wisdom of what best practices were, right, need to change now. Are they the same, or do they need to completely change? Because I see I think it's shifting, but I think I've seen a lot of people talk about how what are best practices now? How do we go about doing it? So do they change with the way that we are now going to be sort of trying to reach these students remotely, or is it the same and we just have to shift the way that we deliver?
Well, I think it has to do a lot with attitude. Those that maintain that positive attitude can continue to use the strategies that they have. It's just a different way of implementing those strategies in a virtual form. I think sometimes, and I've seen it in colleagues who are educators in other districts, they're nervous about the things that they can't change, which pulls away from their instruction, planning. It draws so much away, thinking about the things that cannot change. As I've been saying, we've been very proactive here rather than reactive. And I think if we keep that positivity in the forefront and are able to change what's within our limit, I think we can continue to go forward. But strategies are strategies. It's when you deliver them. It's the way that they're being supported. I think attitude is huge now, and then staying informed. I think our district and many districts around us are waiting for state guidance, and then we look at that, and that kind of powers what we do next. because we certainly have limitations. But what really will hinder you will be that negative mindset. So I'm lucky to be surrounded by positive people here within my district, but then surrounding districts we're looking at each other for support. We're looking at ways to better support both our community and our staff. But I think a positive attitude is huge here.
Yeah, I think that's key too. It's so easy to get paralyzed by all the changes and by, everything's changing so quickly that you think more about the challenges and all of the sort of negative stuff that's out there, rather than keeping in mind that the end goal is to educate these students and provide them with the best education that we can, no matter how we deliver it. And it's kind of a curveball that I've been throwing people, because I think I was one of those people for a while that said, what best practices don't exist anymore. But the more that I thought about it, the more that I talked to people, to me, yes, they do. It's just how we deliver them is different. How are you going to plan for everything? And it sounds like you all have done a great job at sort of thinking about, what it's going to look like no matter what you need to do.
Well, for our ELs, we had training with Dr. Medina, and we said, we're still integrating listening, speaking, reading, and writing, because it is a best practice, making sure that we're using all 4 language domains so that they can continue to grow, in second language acquisition and the academics. And so we made visuals, and we made them, but because we learned from Dr. Medina, we made visuals so that teachers can point, for the students that have a hard time hearing, or if there's noise in the background, but they're going to be pointing, okay, so now it's going to be a listening activity, or right now it's going to be a writing activity. So we are accommodating what we know is best practice, but how is it going to be implemented and executed in a virtual lesson?
Yeah. It's good that you're getting that PD and sort of challenging some of the traditional sort of ways that we've done things. Even, that takes humility. You have to be humble to realize that, the way that I did things before might not work right now. My end goal is the same. How do I shift it? So that's great. So one more question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, and it goes back to communication. I think that the more that we communicate with our stakeholders, the more comfortable and we can calm down some of that anxiety. So even throughout the summer, our Dr. Nergon, our superintendent, and I were looking to see how frequently did we communicate with our community, and the most that we did not send some type of communication was 2 weeks. And that was since March 16th, including the summer. So we don't have a lot of parents that come and complain. I mean, we have over 2,000 families. And if we get, 5 a week, it's a lot. But I think it's that ongoing conversation. And when they do call, we listen. And if we can problem solve right there and then, we problem solve. And so I think that's really helped us as well.
Yeah, great point. That communicate, if you're establishing great relationships and nurturing them, when there is a problem, it's a lot easier to handle it, rather than to not have communication and say, hey, we have a problem, then it's difficult. I've been hearing that over and over again as well. So my last question is, I think an important one, maybe not directly related to the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, but nonetheless really important for folks like you who are really, really busy right now and doing really important work. Where are you getting your inspiration from? How are you keeping yourselves motivated to do this incredibly difficult work right now?
I'll let Juan answer first.
Sure. I think for me, my inspiration or my motivator has been my daughter going into kindergarten.
I could have guessed that.
I want her to, have that first year is very crucial, and she's missing out. So I just thought if I feel that way about my daughter's education, I have, almost 5,000 students here that I need to worry about. I need to worry about my English learners and what are we putting in place for them to transition from having the summer off and coming into school, where as much as I want to, I don't want to miss a beat with them in this first step for them. But looking at our all the way through our 8th graders, what are we doing to make sure that they enjoy their last year with us in 8th grade? It's just what I want for my daughter, I want to provide for our students here. And that's been my motivator. And really, I want her to have the best, and I want our students here in Maywood to have the best.
See, and for me, it's my 8th year in the district, and it's my 3rd position. So I started as a principal, moved on to director, now I'm the assistant soup. So I think it's been an honor to serve this community. We talk about, looking outside the window or having mirrors. When I step into my community, I identify myself with 98% of the students walking around because I was an EL, I was a minority. My parents till this day don't speak English. I'm still their interpreter. Juan knows that I have to take off, early, or, I go and drop them off to the doctor's appointment and then come back to work because, here in Maywood at Loyola. And so that's my motivation. Like, if I was able to make it, being an ELL student in the 80s in Chicago public schools with parents that came, immigrated from Mexico and still don't speak English, all our students in Melrose Park, all our students in Maywood, and all our students in Broadview will be able to do it. So just, I have children of my own. Mine are a little older than Juan's. But same thing, right? My son's going into 7th grade. He's happy that it's all full-time remote learning because he knows I'm going to be at work. But what I want our students here, I heard an analogy the other day. There's students that have parents and they already start in 3rd base in baseball. So to make that run, they only have to go to, 4th base and then make the run. I feel like we're working with students that really, we as adults and as educators need to teach them how to make home run so they can make that run and catch up with those students that have all those privileges and advantages, and my kid doesn't have the same challenges that the kids that I serve have. And so I'm thinking of them so that, because I was them. So I'm thinking of them when I make those decisions, when, I'm spending 10 hours here at work and feeling guilty as a mom, but I know I'm doing it for the right reasons. Because I know my kid at home, he has it made. He's the third base kid, right? That's just going to have to make that quick run. Not our kids here in Maywood at Melrose Park.
Well, that's beautifully said by both of you, and your students there are definitely lucky to have you representing them. I feel very honored to have spoken with you as well, and getting kind of a little foundation for the In This Together docuseries. So you're off to the races now, and we'll catch up with you in a couple weeks and figure out kind of how it all started. I'm sure the one thing that we can guarantee is that there are no guarantees and that things will change in the next couple of weeks. So we look forward to chatting with you then. Maribel, Taboada, and Juan Corona, thank you so much for joining us in this first episode, and we'll catch up with you again very soon.
Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you.